My guest today is Christopher Wyze of Christopher Wyze and the Tellers Blues Band. Now, earlier this year, they won the coveted RMR Top 40 Blues Album of the Year, and with that prize, Christopher Wyze and the Tellers became one of just three debut artists to crack the RMR's Top 40 out of the top 200 albums they ranked for 2024. Now, fresh off their recording sessions in Muscle Shoals and the Mississippi Delta, Christopher Wyze and the Tellers jolted onto the global blues scene with Stuck in the Mud, their 13-track debut album of all original music. But we have a brand new album to talk about today, so let's welcome blues extraordinaire Christopher Wyze and his newest album, Live in Clarksdale, to the show. Welcome, Christopher.
Oh, it's great to be here, Ward. Wow, that's a great intro. I appreciate it. My mother will love that.
Well, you deserve it. I fell in love with this brand new live album, but how long have you been playing the blues?
Well, I've been playing the blues about 20 years. I before that, I did all sorts of things. I was a writer and an advertising guy, which really has helped me as it comes now to writing music. And so been in music a long time, but just started writing my own stuff and put the Tellers together to do our albums. So we've got two of them out there now.
Well, is it true that Christopher Wyze and the Tellers was originally a studio project?
Exactly. Yes, we went into the studio in Muscle Shoals in 2022, and even at the time, we didn't even know what we were going to do with the record. We thought, hey, we got a great group of songs. They're original songs I wrote with my producer Ralph Carter and a couple other guys, and he interviewed and auditioned the session players. We put the album together, and we thought, hey, great, this is fun. I don't know what we're going to do with it. But once people started hearing it, it's like, hey, we got to get this thing out there. It turned into signing a record deal with Big Radio Records in Memphis, Tennessee, a company that was started, it's called Selecto Hits, that's the company, by Sam Phillips, who we were just talking about Elvis. So Sam Phillips started this company that I'm on their record label. And Johnny Phillips, his nephew, is my guy. That's who signed me to Big Radio Records. So once that record got going, and you mentioned it did very nicely around the world on the blues charts. We really hadn't performed as a band because, as you said, we were a studio project. So here we are. This record's done well. We're getting followers. We're getting listeners. We got to do something to keep the momentum going. So we decided to do a live show and a live album. It was our first show and performance as a band together. And we just rolled the dice and said, let's film it, let's record it, and let's release it as our second album, which came out here in 2025.
So, what led you to actually record the first album in Muscle Shoals?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit of the story. I met my co-writer, Ralph Carter, in Clarksdale, Mississippi. So I was playing in a cover band, and we did the blues, and I began to learn the harmonica. I thought I got to contribute a little bit. You know, the singer doesn't do much, right? He just sings. The real musicians are around me, right? So I thought I got to learn the harmonica. I discovered there was a harmonica camp in Clarksdale, Mississippi. You go, Ward, for a week and learn the harmonica. Now, some people there buy their harmonica on the way down to the camp, and others, like myself, they might be playing in bands and so forth, and they want to pick up a new instrument. That was really me. I met Ralph Carter there. I've said his name a couple of times, but Ralph became my producer. Well, Ralph, in his younger days, was kind of rock and roll royalty. He played and wrote songs with Eddie Money and was his tour musical director. So Ralph and I just kind of hit it off when I showed up in Clarksdale to learn the harmonica. He was one of the instructors. Long story short, maybe the first time I was there, and I went several times over several years, he said, hey, you can do this. You need to start writing your own music. And I was like, wow, I'm in a cover band. Wow, I don't know, maybe, whatever. And maybe the next year I saw him, he's like, how you coming on the music? He goes, we're going to do an album someday. I said, man, I'd love to be on your album. That'd be great, Ralph. He's, no, it's going to be your album and it's going to be your songs. So he kept after me for a couple of years. And one day, I may have mentioned I was an advertising guy. I owned an advertising agency. So I'm reading the Wall Street Journal like every good blues man, right? No, so I'm reading the Wall Street Journal one day. There's an article in there about a new recording studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, where you go, you stay, the musicians stay in the studio upstairs. It's an old mansion, been remodeled, and you make music, you hang out the whole week there, they cook food for you and so forth. So I read this article, I snapped a picture of it on my iPhone, and I texted it over to Ralph. I said, "Hey, here's where we're gonna make our record," and I was just kidding. And he came back and said, "Okay, let's do it." And that was it in 2022. We talked on the phone. We agreed, let's meet in Clarksdale, Mississippi in a few months. And in the meantime, in the interim, Chris would write songs, and then I'd meet Ralph, and I would write the lyrics and meet Ralph, and we'd turn them into songs. And about 12 weeks later, we did. I met for 3 days in Clarksdale, Mississippi. We had already booked the studio in Muscle Shoals. I don't know. We were crazy. We thought we can do this, but he'd been through it before. He knows how this works, and I had a lot of confidence in him. So we booked the studio in Muscle Shoals. That's kind of how it came to be. It was started out as a bit of a joke, but read about it in an article. And then, I don't know, 3, 4 months later, there we were. Monday morning, I meet the band. Never met these guys before. I knew Ralph. I took my bass player, Jerry Murphy, with me from my cover band. And we had Eric Deaton, who I'd met before in Clarksdale, Mississippi, playing guitar. And then a couple session guys from Muscle Shoals. Ralph was our producer. And, these songs that he and I wrote and developed, we did it on a picnic table at the Shack Up Inn in Clarksdale, Mississippi on my iPhone. So these songs didn't exist. It's not like we were out playing them and then we went in the studio and recorded them. They really didn't exist. So to come together on a Monday morning and have a great producer there to say, we're going to build these songs from just very scratchy demos was a great experience. 5 days later, we walked out with the whole album, and this thing's been going fast forward since that day.
Well, I read some of the backstory, and to know that you were a copywriter,
Yeah.
it would just kind of make sense that writing a song would be easy, but going from a copywriter to a songwriter wasn't easy at all, was it?
Well, in addition to writing copy, I've also got 5 books that are in print that I've written. So I write a lot of stuff. I was a newspaper writer, I was a magazine writer, I was an advertising writer, and I'm a book writer. And so, Ward, by the time I was called upon to write songs, I already brought a couple of things to the table. One, I know how to write, and I got that. I'd been playing in a band for 15 years and been the cover or the front man out in front, playing the blues and rock and roll. So I kind of got how that all worked. As a kid, I sang and I was on stage and all this kind of stuff. So I had a little bit of that in me too. So you said, well, it really was kind of hard, wasn't it? I don't think it really was that hard because of all the background that I had when I showed up and said, let's write. And keep in mind, when you write for a newspaper or you write for a magazine or you're an ad guy, there's a deadline and you hit the deadline. And so Ralph and I said, we're going to meet in 12 weeks. I'll bring 15 songs with me. It's like, hey, that's Pavlov's dog for me. The bell goes off. I got 15 songs to write, and I wrote them. The trick for me is having an idea because I'm used to writing nonfiction stuff. All my books are nonfiction. Some of these are fictional, or at least they feel fictional. They might be sort of autobiographical, and some of them are. But the word part wasn't the struggle. It was really once I have an idea and I kind of know the way the blues works and the pattern and so forth. It's pretty good. It's pretty good to write 200 words instead of 40,000 for a book.
Yeah, I love that story because a very dear late friend of mine was a famous copywriter. He was also a film director, but his background was English literature, so it just all came natural to him. And to see you as a copywriter, a successful one, and then to just come up with, I guess, ideas and lines or a lyric, and then to have someone like Ralph Carter just come in and look at it and just kind of, I guess, paint the overall picture for each piece you brought.
Yeah, and we went to Clarksdale, Mississippi, and Ward, you may know that's kind of where the blues came from. W.C. Handy, quote, discovered the blues in 1903 just outside of town there at the train station in Tutwiler. And so, I mean, that is Bluesville, USA, and really for the whole world. If you and I went down there today, half the people walking down the street would be from probably Europe. They come from all over the world. So you can't help but feel the blues and drink in the blues and just have the blues when you go to Clarksdale. So for Ralph and I to go there, that was the perfect place to make these songs. I later attended a songwriting camp with him. He does songwriting camps there, guitar camps. It's a great place to get away and just focus on the music. And the process was amazing. Ralph would say, "Okay, get out your lyrics." I'm like, "Okay, here we go." "All right, Ralph, what do we do? You know how to write songs." I wrote the lyrics. And he'd say, "Read it to me." I thought that was real interesting. So let's take the song 3 Hours from Memphis, which I wrote. I would read him the song. And, interestingly enough, because I wrote it, I would give inflection and I would certainly try to shape the story in the way I narrated it. And he had a guitar in his hand. He goes, "Wait a minute, that sounds kind of like this." And that's the way this process went. And he's such a great musician. He has actually a recording studio in Ventura, California. He plays bass, he plays guitar, he plays piano, he plays drums. So some of the music he creates, he's done for TV and film and so forth. He'll do many of the instruments on the recordings. So he's a real multi-dimensional kind of musician in many, many ways. So it was just really fun to have him say, he would just say, "Read the song, tell me the story behind it." And he'd say, "What about this? What about that?" And we truly collaborated on both. He might say, "Hey, those are too many words." I'm like, "Oh, you're right, man. Cut them out." So it couldn't have been any more fun and more fascinating to watch these little mini stories turn into songs and then go record them. And then people liked them. So
Well,
that was
you know, you have a very distinct voice, and almost almost it's very radio like. So when you were growing up as a kid, did you have to grow into your voice?
well, here you go. Here's another bit of my music education that went into it. So I sang in choirs. We had a really good music department in my high school. And when I was a freshman, I was a first tenor. Okay, that's the highest. I was a sophomore, I was a second tenor. Junior, I was a baritone, and senior, I was a bass. So I guess I did grow into my voice, and it really taught me all the way from the treble clef, if you're a musician, all the way down in the bass clef. And we would for instance sing the Messiah with an orchestra. So I mean we were a pretty well developed high school singing, 8-part kind of harmony kind of guys and gals. And so that was great background as well to bring in this music, but and also to be able to know all those parts, be singing at the very highest register for a guy and at the very lowest. Yeah, I did grow into the voice, and yeah, I would say my voice is maybe a little different for blues singers. I don't. I haven't smoked 40 cigarettes a day, man. I know you're a health guy as well, Dr. Ward. And a lot of those guys, sometimes I think, oh, I wish I had this really cool, raspy, old kind of guy voice. But there were some great blues crooners too. B.B. King was a great crooner. People say, what a guitar player. I say, what a singer. King of all the blues singers. Bobby Blue Bland, what a beautiful, beautiful voice. You get to R&B and soul, Otis Redding. I just love those guys, that Memphis sound, that Stax Records sound. So my voice is probably a little bit different in the blues. And I think my blues music is a little different in that most of them are somewhat intricate stories. And some blues songs are stories, and some blues songs are just the groove, man. And mine tend more toward the stories. And so purposely, when I sing, I want people to be able to hear the lyrics and understand them, because I'm trying to tell a story. And that's where the name of the band came from, The Tellers, right? We tell stories. So there you go, Christopher Wyze and The Tellers.
Well, I was about to ask you about where that name came from, so that completely makes sense. And I remember, gosh, it's been a while now, but I have been to Greenville, Mississippi, and it is a city in the Delta that
Yeah.
time forgot.
Yeah.
So that whole Delta area, I mean, that is just full of incredible flavor for songwriters and musicians and recording artists. And I think any musician or recording artist that's never been to the Delta, they need to make a trip and maybe get re-energized with their craft a bit and maybe learn something new.
I wrote a song called "Back to Clarksdale," and the lyrics are essentially it's kind of a autobiography. It's like, hey, it's a song about a guy who kind of worked too hard, and I did. Uh, kind of got, you know, made himself probably not real well. I got to be about 40, and it's like, wow, I am burnt out. And thankfully, I got back to music, and I got to Clarksdale, and I wrote this song calling back to Clarksdale. It's the only place I really know, only place I want to go, only place that knows me. So it go. That's the lyrics of the song, and I really feel that genuinely every time I go to Clarksdale. It's like, slow down, exhale. I'm going back to Clarksdale. That's actually the lyrics, and I think you're right, Ward. Any musician would benefit because that's where so much of our American music came from was from the blues. Rock and roll is blues. It's mixed up with country and Appalachian music and all that, but man, the Delta's cooking that music right up out of the ground, and there's no place better to feel the music and real, American music right out of there. I get chills when I see the sign that says Clarksdale that way. I really do, and I always drive when I go there. It's about 8 hours because I need to decompress, man. And I'm going back to Clarksdale, and I am there, and I'm totally focused on the music and the wonderful musicians I've met and become good friends with down there. It's a treat, and Greenville, I'm sure, is sort of the same thing. It's a different world, but you understand where the music came from when you go there.
Oh yeah, and Christopher, I love this album, Live in Clarksdale. I mean, it is a true blues album. I found it to be very raw, but brilliantly put together. And the song "Stuck in the Mud," uh, it has this, it has this sound like a movie needs to be made. So,
Oh,
what's that
let's you
song
got to make a
about?
movie, Ward. You said you were telling me about your friend who wrote movies, so let's get him on board. Let's do this. Let's do this movie.
Yeah, well, he's passed away, but he had over
You got to
45
know somebody
films.
else, don't you?
Oh, I know more filmmakers than you can shake a stick at. And but the song, I mean, is just an incredible song. So what's it about?
Well, have you ever felt like you were stuck? It's like, I can't go forward. I can't go back. I don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't know where I got the idea, but I said, all I need is an idea for a song and I can pretty much write lyrics around it. So that was it. It's a simple idea. It's like, we've all been stuck. And that's all this is. It's no more. My wife, she said, okay, well, you didn't tell me how you got stuck in the lyrics. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Everybody's been there. So this is one of those, hey, we've all been there. And that's really the story of Stuck in the Mud. Stuck in the mud. After the flood, I'm stuck in the mud. So, and what I meant by that is that's the words to the lyrics is, after some cataclysmic event, let's call it a flood, people tend to get stuck. And that's really all it is, man. This isn't the solution. Sometimes the blues just describes the problem. So that's one of these.
Okay, I love that. We need more songs that may just talk about the problem and it gives us no solution. And because I know everybody in this world looks for an answer, but sometimes there's not one. So we need songs in that realm, and you bring that to us. But there's a song that I just love on this album called "Looking for My Baby." Uh, it has such a great rhythm, but
Oh
the
yeah.
guitar really stands out.
It really does. That's my dear friend John Boyle, who played in my cover band. So, Christopher Wyze and the Tellers went into the studio, and it was a group of guys. The live album group was essentially a different band. So it wasn't the same guys. And my good friend John Boyle on the guitar, he just slays it. Mark Yakavone on the keyboards is masterful on that song. And Ralph Carter gave it a little bit of this doo-wop bluesy thing going on in the whole feel of the song. And this song, "Looking for My Baby," is about this guy we all know, Ward. He's full of himself and he's full of it. And he says, "I'm looking for my baby." Hey, fellas, he walks into, the nightclub, the bar, whatever. "I'm looking for my baby." Well, the guy's full of it. He doesn't even have a girlfriend. Of course, he's just telling it that. So that's kind of the song. That one's kind of a funny one, but we all know somebody like that. So I try to write songs about losers and lovable losers. So this is kind of a lovable loser kind of story.
I love it, but I think the song is just fantastic. But I was really surprised where you actually reached back in time and recorded a song from 1928, "How Long Blues" by Leroy Carr and Scrapper Blackwell. What is it about the blues songs of the past that maybe we are missing in blues today?
Well, I think it's the simplicity of the music, both from the words and uh, the music that they create. So here you got Scrapper Blackwell, who plays guitar, and Leroy Carr, who was a pianist, played the piano. And that's about all it is, and it's stripped down to its simplest form. And the words of the song are haunting. That song has been recorded hundreds of times by all the blues greats. How long has that evening train been gone? It's just simple ideas like that it builds a yearning. So I think the songs of the past, those old blues songs, remind us we can do so many things in the studio and with our computers and AI and all that. And it reminds me that you don't need any of that. You don't need any of that to tell a great story. And that's what Carr and Blackwell did with that beautiful song. And then we did another one called "Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out," which is another song from the 20s that we also did in that show. I wanted to do a couple of covers, especially from Leroy Carr and Scrapper Blackwell, because they're from Indianapolis, and that's where I live. And one of the most amazing things about How Long Blues, Carr and Blackwell recorded 8 or 9 different versions of it. Their first version sold 1 million copies. It was one of the first million-selling records in America. And it was so popular, they're like, "Well, we'll do another version and another one and another." They kept releasing the same song with a little bit different twist on it, which I just love. The other thing is they recorded that song here in Indianapolis in a hotel room on portable equipment in about 1925 with Vocalion Records. And many of the black artists from the South, they could not record in the South. That people wouldn't do it. And these guys came up north, and they recorded. They went to Chicago. They came to Indianapolis, and then there's a place just east of Indianapolis in Richmond, Indiana, Jeanette Records, which Louis Armstrong recorded his first album in Richmond, Indiana, for Jeanette Records. Same kind of thing. A lot of these great black musicians came to Richmond, Indiana, to record because they couldn't get it done elsewhere. Bix Beiderbecke, Jelly Roll Morton, Fats Waller, they all recorded here in Richmond, Indiana, just about an hour from my home here. So that's a long story. I had to do Scrapper and Leroy, and they're both, they lived here. They're both buried here. And it's cool. I really dig their music, and it's just as good today as it was 100 years ago.
So, who are some of your great blues influences?
Well, if I had to pick one, he'd be at the head of Mount Rushmore there. It'd be the great Howlin' Wolf, Chester Burnett. And he was just an incredible performer, singer. I wish I had his voice. He had a voice like a wolf. It was growly and scary and all that stuff. And an incredible performer, part of the Chess Records out of Chicago that sang a whole bunch of Willie Dixon songs. So I really love Howlin' Wolf. J.J. Cale is another favorite of mine. Kind of a rock and roller, kind of a blues guy, kind of tied in with Leon Russell, who discovered him, and he's certainly great. When Jimmy Reed, the great Jimmy Reed, I'm going to New York. I'm going to New York if I got to walk, that kind of. And Jimmy Reed, kind of along the lines of those old blues songs, he had a certain beat. It was kind of the Jimmy Reed beat, and he must have recorded 500 sides, and all of them kind of sound the same. And yet, I've listened to all of them, and I listened to him over and over because he had his own unique way. I love Junior Wells. Junior Wells was a Chicago guy who played with Muddy Waters and was a great performer and singer and a great harmonica player. I just absolutely love his harmonica playing. Then, of course, Sonny Boy Williamson, the great harmonica player, and Little Walter. So I love the old blues. That really gets to me, and it's really special music for the whole world, as I've discovered.
Well, that's the thing I noticed when I was listening to the album, because what I love about Live in Clarksdale is I get to hear you sing, because I think a lot of fans today of music, when we think of blues, most people never focus on the people singing. They're focusing on the guitar playing.
I think you're
Because
right.
yeah, because you think of, I mean, we've got some great ones out there now. We got Marcus King, we got
Oh,
Kingfisher, I mean, the list goes on, but everybody's always focusing on blues guitars because, like you said, if you mention BB King, the first thing people are going to think of is The Thrill Is Gone. They're going to think of Lucille. But
yeah.
like you said, they don't focus on how great BB King was as a singer. And
Hmm.
we think of Freddie King and like you said, Howlin' Wolf. We're thinking of all of these other people ripping guitar. Stevie Ray Vaughan brought blues up into mainstream radio, and I think that's probably where it kind of kicked off from between him and Eric Clapton. But I'm kind of like you. I want to hear the singing because it's the singing that's telling the stories.
It is, and I struggle with that a little because you look at me and you go, well, you maybe look a little like a blues guy, but you don't really talk like a blues guy, and I don't even know if I sing like a blues guy, but I really want people to hear these stories. I mean, some of them are from my real life, tragic stories. I mean, I got one called "Good Friend Gone." I've got a friend who's not with me anymore, and he's gone. He made a lot of bad decisions, and that's the blues. Back to Clarksdale, you got a guy who was a business guy and he worked too hard, and his world was going in the wrong direction until he got back into the music, and that was me. So I these stories to me are timeless. They're Shakespearean, if you will, and I always liked and enjoyed reading Shakespeare, and just there's just some classic stories, good and evil, and this person down on his luck, and things like that. Those are the stories of the blues. Those are the stories that last over time, and yeah, I think people. I'm okay singing now the way I do and articulating and trying to make sure people can hear where these stories are going. But I also love people who growl the blues and I can't understand a word of it. And you got the great guitar. Freddie King was one heck. You're quite a blues man, Ward. You know your blues guys. Freddie
Well,
King,
I have to
amazing.
give credit to my son for that because he's big blues. I mean, we would go into these old. I mean, we would go into these old stores. They weren't record stores, but they would have these boxes of records, and you just thumb through them, and they're all blues. I mean, Wes Montgomery. I mean, come on. So was it Blind Melon? I mean, the list goes on, and you're just
Yeah,
picking out these albums, and of course he was looking at it from a guitar point of view. But
sure.
to me, like when I hear you sing, that's the blues that tells the story. And
Uh,
I mean, think about when, Elvis would, in Memphis, he would go and hang out with all of the black artists and
oh, absolutely.
pulling songs and then taking the same songs like he did with Hound Dog and making it his own, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and I can just literally picture, Clarksdale, Mississippi, and in the Delta, and having people go down and just absorb the blues. But when you sing these songs, you're bringing that true sound of the blues, the true flavor. But like you said, and this is why I really love the band's name, the Tellers, because when you sing, you hear the story. And that's what the blues is all about. And look, don't get me wrong, I love a good uh, blues guitar solo, like the best of them, but you got
Hmm.
to tell the story.
Well, you're just warming my heart over here. Thank you so much for that. That means the world. And yeah, it's a little different, But I mentioned like Bobby Blue Bland. I listen to his music, and he's a very articulate singer of the blues. I mean, you know what Bobby's talking about. That he's done several recordings. One of them with BB King, the great blues song "Going Down Slow," about a man who he hadn't lived life the right way, and he's going down slow. And he says, "Mother, don't send no doctor because the doctor can't do me no good." And uh, Bobby Bland does a version of that. If I've listened to that once, I've listened to it 500 times. I cannot get enough of that story about a man who's at the end of his life and said, "I didn't do it right." And when you see that train come into town, Mama, you go get my clothes because they're going to put me in a box, and I want to look good. And I mean, you just hear that story, and it all happens in 3 or 4 minutes of this man laying out his life story that, quite frankly, could have turned out a little bit better, but it didn't.
Yeah. But the thing about singing the blues that a lot of other genres don't they don't ever touch is with the blues, you're selling the song. It's the singer selling the story, selling the song because the audience is feeling the emotion. They may not completely understand the story, but they're like, okay, I get the sorrow, I get the pain, I get, maybe being someone that got forgotten and or down on their luck, or maybe found the love, but you couldn't reel them in. But it's about selling the song, and the blues does it the best.
Boy, it does. I wrote a song with Jerry Murphy in the band called "Hard Work Don't Pay," which, how many times is that idea, take this job and shove it and all that. But at a certain point in your life, you do. Everybody says, "Hey, is this worth it? Is all this hard work?" And so I think there are these timeless stories, and I kind of invent these people. I invented this guy who's like, "Hey, I've had it up to here. I've been working in this coal mine, and I'm done with it. I sat down and wrote this song, and I quit. That I'm done with this thing." So I did another song called "Life Behind Bars." We all think about the maybe rock and roll or blues singer who maybe never got there, was going to be somebody, and it didn't work. So this fella I made up, he lives his life behind bars. He's trapped behind the 12 bars of the blues. He thought he was going to do amazing music, and he just plays the same three chords every night for money in the tip jar. And he sometimes he has a few too many, and he passes out, and he sleeps behind the bar in the alley. So his life is behind bars there. So I'm trying to tell these stories about things that we all, maybe we haven't gone that far, but we've had little glimpses of this in our life. And I don't know, there's something about it. I think you get it, I get it, people who listen to blues get it. When you hear these stories, I don't know what it is, you feel better because
Yeah.
it's the other guy, it's that guy, and so I don't know what, that's the blues. It's like the original talk therapy. Somebody asked me that the other day. I said, "Man, the blues is talk therapy, man. You got to talk about your troubles. You got to talk about uh, your problems. You got to tell people all the hard stuff that's gone down. And once you get that out, okay, now maybe I'll get up tomorrow morning. I can do this again.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You know, when I was and I went in and not only did I listen to the whole album, I went onto your website to watch some of the music videos. And I'm thinking the whole time like you guys need to be booked on the Tonight Show. You need to be
Oh,
booked on Saturday Night Live because you what's lacking today is the emotional feel of the music, but at the same time, you have something, all of you have something that I don't see a lot of today in music, and that's even though the songs may be, down and out here and there, there's still this internal fun factor that the audience receives, and you have to have the fun factor. Like you want the audience to sit there and go, "Oh man, I like these guys," and because hey, likability sells.
that's really, I'm so delighted to hear you say that somehow comes through, in the videos, because over the years, people would tell me, after a show or something, hey, you look like you're having a lot of fun up there. I'm like, I am. I'm having a ball. I mean, and that's the funny thing, being in business and so forth. I wasn't always having fun, it was a little heavy load. Um, I made it out the other side, and now I do music for fun. And I once mentioned to Ralph Carter, my friend and producer and mentor and co-writer, I said, Ralph, doggone it, I wish I would have gotten into music when I was young like you did. He was 20 years old playing in stadiums, in front of 20,000 people. And he said, Chris, I don't think so. I think it worked out just fine for you. So he
well,
said it might not have been as much fun as you're thinking it would have been.
or is the band on tour at the moment?
Well, we're starting to play a little bit. So you mentioned live in Clarksdale. That's the first show we ever did. So that was number one. We all met as a band the day before, so that band was constituted. And I got to give credit to Ralph Carter. I said, Ralph, I want to do a live album. We're going to do it in Clarksdale. We're going to use Coop Cooper. He's a filmmaker down in Clarksdale. He's actually done Chris Stone's videos and things. So Kingfish. Chris Stone, Kingfish Ingram, who's, in fact, his videos, some of them are shot in the same venue that we shot our live in Clarksdale and recorded. That's the Juke Joint Chapel right there in Clarksdale. So I said, Ralph, we're gonna go down to Clarksdale and shoot this thing live, and I'll bring some guys from Indianapolis. Then we had a drummer from Memphis. We had a keyboard player from Oxford, Mississippi, and we all met on Monday and ran through the music, and we did the show on Tuesday. So it was another experience of, hey, let's put the band together, and to have a great guy like Ralph, who, hey, I'm like, how do you rehearse this? He goes, don't you worry about it. and
How do you rehearse the blues, by the way?
Well, yeah, but here's five guys that never played together before, and we got a show to do, and we're going to record it, and we're going to film it. And man, this is live TV. We're kind of rolling the dice here. And it was a short show. We did 10 songs. I keep learning, Ward. I keep learning. I'm an old guy, but I keep learning. It's like, oh, I should have done 20 songs and taken maybe pick 10. But we said we're going to do 10, and it's like, fellas, every one of these has to be a keeper. And you know what? Somehow we may have pulled it off because it was a short show. We did it during the day. There's cameras everywhere. It was a little messy, and we had people there. It was just a riot to do it, and a lot of energy because like this show here, you got one chance, man, and somehow we pulled it off. But it was one heck of a lot of fun.
Well, I will say this with absolute honesty and sincerity, but the whole world needs to see Christopher Wyze and the Tellers.
That is so good, and that's kind of my goal. And so you said, are we on tour? So there was our one show. Or there was one show. We did hear a show in Indianapolis about 6 weeks ago, and we're actually doing one a week from tomorrow. at the Indianapolis Museum of Art. It's a big art fair; about 20,000 people will be on the big stage there, and so, you know, I'd like to put a band together and on the road. And when I started on this project, um, people said you can't do it this way. You can't go make a record and then have people listen to it and pick up fans and followers. It doesn't work that way. You got to be out playing. You got to get in the van. That's how you do it. And I was like, well, I get that, but I'm running out of time, man. I got to get this going now. And I just mean that because I'm so excited and so uh, energized to get it done. It's like I don't have 5 years to travel around the country. It's like, let's get the album done. Let's get it out there. Let's go to the next thing. Let's make another album. And just 2, 3 weeks ago, Ralph and I said we've put the plans in place for album number 3. So you were probably going to say, what's next? Well, that's what's next. And
I think somebody needs to book all of you for Memphis in May next year.
oh, just call whoever it is and tell them. There's
I've
a
been to
there's a
Memphis in May, and it's a great experience.
there's a shiny quarter in it for you, Ward, if you get that done.
Yeah, we were lucky enough when we went to Memphis in May. We saw Aretha Franklin,
Oh,
Jerry Lee Lewis,
oh my,
Keb Mo,
oh my.
and I know Cheryl Crow is there, but we were in the blues tent with Keb Mo, and
Oh,
one hellacious thunderstorm ripped through that concert, and we're sitting there going, "We're inside, we're in the tent, and we don't care."
there you
So,
go. Oh, that had to be wonderful. That sounds fantastic.
oh yeah, I mean everybody needs to go at least once because it's right there on the river. It's right off of Bill Street, so what can you do? I mean, it's just music to enjoy, but you guys need to be booked for Memphis in May. And I will stand firm and say that they need to book you on the Tonight Show as well as Saturday
Oh
Night
man.
Live because you guys are the total package when it comes to a band.
And part of that thing that Ralph told me about, well, it probably worked out okay for you because I think if I would have gotten into this when I was young, I would have treated it the same way as I did sort of being a business guy. I would have clenched up. I would have tried too hard. I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I would have made myself sick. You know what I mean? And now I don't have any of that. People have asked me, are you nervous when you nervous? No, nervous is when you run a business and you got payroll in 2 weeks and you got 30 mouths to feed and there isn't the money. And so there wasn't a paycheck for me for a while, and that's nervous. But playing the music, playing blues, you got to be kidding me. There's not a thing about it that's nerve wracking. Not at all. It's pure fun. It's pure joy. And so I think,
I love that, Chris. And ladies and gentlemen, you got to head over to ChristopherWyzeandTheTellers.com. That's the domain. ChristopherWyzeandTheTellers.com for their brand new album, Live in Clarksdale, as well as check out their music videos and more. And hopefully they'll put a whole big tour together because not only does America need to see them, the whole world needs to see them. And Christopher, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm going to have to contact Scott and say, man, thank you for hooking me up.
well, I want to reach through the screen and give you a big hug, Ward, because this is about the most fun I've had in a long time. And you can tell I don't have very much fun.
Well, you have a lot of fun as long as you stand behind the microphone, right?
Oh, that's exactly right. I can tell you got a knack for this too, my friend.
Well, I've had a little practice over the years with this, but again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear real, raw, fun blues music that you can feel, you can move to, it's Christopher Wyze and the Tellers. And again, Christopher Wyze and the Tellers.com. Check out their new album and take it from me. I've done more reviews on music and film, and the list goes on. That way, if I like it, you're going to like it. And in this case, You're going to love it. So, again, Christopher Wyze and thetellers.com. And again, Chris, thank you so much for being on the show. You have an open invitation to come back anytime.
Oh, cheers. Thanks so much, Ward. Pleasure to meet you.
You too. And ladies and gentlemen, hey, we'll be back with more.